Hello and good evening. I'm Jim Zirin, and this is The Digital Age. Tonight we have a special program about Zagat. Zagat, a name synonymous with the quintessential restaurant guide, which continues to publish its survey in book form. The Zagat Restaurant Guide is at the top of everyone's top drawer. But recently, Zagat has changed its business plan. Advertising, marketing, selling and reporting on fine dining and nightlife in over 75 cities on the net. Which brings us to our question: will Zagat dine out on the net as a result of its new business plan? And tonight we have a very special guest to answer that question. A truly iconic figure in the restaurant survey field. Tim Zagat is the Raja of restaurant ratings, the guru of gourmet guides, and co-founder with his wife Nina and guiding spirit of the Zagat Survey. Tim, welcome to the Digital Age.
Glad to be with you.
Now,
I could answer your question right at the beginning of the show.
All right, tell me.
We've been online since the late 1980s, and we are one of the few profitable, we've been consistently profitable online since then. And we've been a subscriber site, and a profitable one, a very profitable one, since last 3 or 4 years at least.
Now, by the way, I bought this book the other day, and it cost me $17 at a newsstand.
Good for you.
How much would it cost me to subscribe online?
$25, but you get the entire world, actually. You get about 75 cities. The equivalent of hundreds of dollars of books you get for $25, and it's much more flexible in many ways.
I understand you have a restaurant guide to Istanbul. Is that offered online?
Yes.
And Las Vegas?
Yeah, absolutely, and plus nightlife.
And nightlife as well.
In Las Vegas, that's important.
In Las Vegas, I'm sure that's important.
But also Las Vegas has become a great dining city. People haven't realized how many hotels and casinos have gone out and bought top-name chefs as a way of appreciating the value of their entire brands and properties. And this has been going on for quite a while in Las Vegas. And Las Vegas is, in the last 5 years, has become one of the great dining centers of the world.
Now, let's just back up for a minute. I mean, you are, by training, a lawyer.
So are you.
And your wife, Nina, is a lawyer.
Yes.
So am I.
Yeah.
And you met at Yale Law School. Mm-hmm. And in 1979, you started this gig, Restaurant Guides.
Pretty good gig. Pretty good gig. Yeah.
You don't practice law anymore.
Well, not if I can help it.
And would you please share with us how you got this idea, how you started, and how this thing evolved in the last 27 years?
Well, we had been assigned right out of law school to work and live in Paris. It's a pretty good experience. And we came back, and we were members of a food group, used to get together once a month, and we were at a dinner party one night in 1978 or 9, and somebody started criticizing one of the restaurant critics at a major newspaper, and he was doing it at some length because he was outspoken to start with, and he was already on his 10th glass of wine.
This was here in New York?
Here in New York, and he just laid out this critic. And I had had my 10th glass of wine, and I might never have said, let's do it.
Well, you haven't had any wine this morning.
No, not yet.
Who was the critic?
I don't want to name names, but I was just sitting there, and I said, you know, I have done political surveying in the past, and I think that it would be much more reliable if you had thousands of people going to the restaurants rather than just taking the opinion of one person. The one person, you know, why do they have better taste buds than you or I? And I haven't seen any universities handing out PhDs in taste buds. And I know you for many, many years, and I know you eat out all the time. So do I, so do most of our friends. And why are the collective audience of the restaurants, the customers, being excluded from the process of at least, not to say that they're going to replace critics, because I don't suggest that, but to give the consumer's point of view based on shared experience is what we do.
Now, you haven't handed out your surveys, and you started with just what were once called mimeographed surveys.
That dates it.
That really dates it. But you don't hand out your surveys to everyone who comes out of a given restaurant. You have officially appointed surveyors, don't you?
No, they're not appointed. What we try to do is we target people who are likely to be avid diners or avid about whatever subject we're surveying around. So, for example, we have the members of the major film societies are contacted and said, would you like to vote on the films you see? We have 15,000 people who see on average over 100 films a year and who vote on 100 films a year. That collectively has advantages over a single critic. I mean, we all know that critics of movies disagree all the time. The survey may show disagreement, which is very important, but if you only read one reviewer's review, you don't know that actually 9 other reviewers don't see it the same way. When you do a survey, you can reflect the differences as well. If all 10 people or all 1,000 people say they agree, that tells you a lot.
Now, how many surveyors do you have in total, say in New York?
New York, we have, for restaurants, 32,000, but we have 10 or 15,000 people who survey all forms of shopping in New York. We have some New Yorkers who are participating in the movie theater, movie survey, the music survey. I can't tell you the cumulative number, but it's way over 50,000.
So you have 32,000 spies, if you will, going into restaurants, not identifying themselves as being Zagat surveyors.
In contrast, by the way, to most critics who are recognized in most restaurants and get treated differently than everybody else. The best review, I think, the most memorable one that Ruth Reichel is now the editor-in-chief of Gourmet Magazine, that used to do it for the Times. She wrote a 2-part review of Le Cirque. One part when she was not recognized, one part when she was. It was like she was in 2 different restaurants.
Now, your surveyors vote online, isn't that right?
They entirely vote online. That's been the last 3 or 4 years, but we spent millions of dollars converting from paper to online voting.
And they vote anonymously?
They vote anonymously unless they elect to go public with their comments. They are anonymous.
Now, let me open the New York City Guide and pick a restaurant at random, Primavera on First Avenue in the 80s.
Yep.
And it presents 3 ratings for food, decor, and service. You give it in the 2007 guide 23 for food, 21
Very
for
good.
decor,
Yeah.
22 for service. Now, the maximum is 30, isn't that right?
That's right.
Now, each surveyor rates the restaurant on a scale of 0 to 3. There are 4 ratings, isn't that right?
That's right.
Now, how many surveyors would you estimate, your best estimate, went to Primavera in the last year?
I'd be guessing, but I know the restaurant, and it's on the Upper East Side where we have a lot of surveyors. I would guess upwards of 2,000 or 3,000 people.
2,000 to 3,000 people.
I would guess that that restaurant has approximately 10% of its entire customer base are actually rating it.
So on the premise that there are 2,000 people that visited, who were surveyors, who visited Primavera in the last year, you added up their ratings, and
the computer added up their ratings,
and divided by 2,000,
right,
and came up with a number. Let's say it was 2.3.
And then we'd move the decimal point, and it would become 23
for food.
Right.
I see. And so now 2,000 people visiting that restaurant in the last year. I mean, how does anyone get a reservation in this town?
Well, it's tough. Actually, we rated the entire city of New York as a whole for dining, and we got 28 out of 30 for diversity. We got 25 for culinary creativity, but when it came to table availability, it was only a 13. That's for the city as a whole. It's a big problem.
Now, just comparing your methodology with what a food critic does for the New York Times, and now it's Bill Grimes. I remember it was the late lamented Mimi Sheraton. I remember going to dinner with Mimi Sheraton and her husband one night, and each one in the party had a different dish. and she went to each restaurant 3 or 4 times and then took contemporaneous notes and then wrote up her review. Isn't that a much more reliable methodology coming from a professional food critic than just someone who has been targeted by Zagat and goes to a restaurant and casts the vote online?
The answer is no.
And why is that?
And it's really several reasons. One, I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing critics, because I think they play a very important part. And to be a good critic, and we have a number of them in New York, is a terrific thing, and they add great depth of vision. But they only eat with one set of taste buds, and they only eat at 1 or 2 times a year. When we say we have 2,000 people at Primavera, each of them go 10 times. So at least that's what they tell us. So we're talking about having people in that restaurant all the time, winter, summer. You feel differently. The menu is different at different times of year. Our people eat with every table in the house. They deal with every waiter in the house, every maitre d'. They don't, there's always a danger when one person goes that one person just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or caught the restaurant on the day that it woke up on the wrong side of the bed. The delivery didn't come into the kitchen until late, and so everybody's discombobulated. You have different food served at different times of year. The main thing also is that the survey is able to reflect when a restaurant is consistently good, but a critic cannot go more than a few times because they have to write another review. Tomorrow they got to write another review.
Well, does your surveyor, man or a woman, does he or she tell you how many times they visited the restaurant when they cast their vote?
They tell us how many times they visited the average restaurant they visited on, and we know how many restaurants they visited. We know all kinds of things about them. So
what you don't know is that if somebody gave Primavera a 2 for food,
right,
how many times that person, that surveyor, visited Primavera?
I don't necessarily care. If I have 2,000 people, it all washes out. There's another person who lives around the corner from Primavera who is there every day of the week, comes in for lunch and dinner, and we don't ask that person, did you eat there? Do you have a corner table with your embedded with your posterior?
Now, all of these ratings, of course, are matters of opinion, but you also have factual information about each restaurant. The
right.
name, the address, the phone number, how hard it is to, whom you might call for reservations. Sometimes that's there. But you also have, as factual information, the average price of a meal.
Right.
And critics of the Zagat survey say that...
one critic recently said.
One critic...
Nobody else has said that in 27 years.
Well, but for example, for the restaurant 11 Madison Park,
right,
you listed the price, the average price of a meal, as $66. Mm-hmm. I see. And according to, that's a Danny Meyer restaurant.
Right.
And according to the reporter for the New York Post, that actually it's about $100 a person.
First of all, it's not 100, it's 77. And what happened is in late April, when the survey was fully underway, they changed from being, that specific restaurant changed from being a la carte to prefix. So, number one, the facts changed, and that he was correct in pointing that out. Number two, the restaurant has a relatively large bar area that's less expensive, and that is why the average comes out a little lower than this particular writer. But I think the writer was writing for flamboyance and selling newspapers, and did not, he picked on 10 restaurants and then went and said that these cost estimates were wrong. The cost estimates have never been challenged over many years, and the restaurants always come up to me and they say, how'd you know how much we were getting, an average tip? I said, the reason I know is I know what the average customer who was in your restaurant paid. Or
the prices for typically for dinner, one drink, and the tip,
yeah,
isn't that right?
But the restaurateurs are always saying to us, boy, you're unbelievably accurate. I think this was a case of somebody writing a basically a story to get headlines.
Another criticism launched at Zagat is that
we don't get criticisms very much. So
here's constructive criticism. That you have a list of the most popular restaurants.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how you gauge the most popular restaurants, but the criticism is that people tend to go to the same restaurants all the time. They like them, and they go back year after year after year. So the same restaurants stay on the most popular list. It's like the best dressed or the worst dressed list.
Well, actually, we have lots of lists that we assume that people are looking for different things on different nights. So you have a list of the top food ratings in order of rating. You have a list of top decors, top service. We have also the top newcomers of the year. And we indicate in the top popular list what the changes are. So, for example, there is a consistency when there is at the top, when there is no new fantastic restaurant that comes in above Le Bernardin, it's understandable Le Bernardin will remain number one. We think that the public wants to know that Le Bernardin and Danielle are number one and number two. And if they do their job the way they have been doing it for the last years, they will remain there as long as nobody else comes in and does it better, or as long as the chef doesn't get up and leave.
And what's the question you ask your surveyor that gives you the answer among the most popular?
Most popular is just indicate your 5 favorite restaurants, what you think are the 5 best restaurants overall in order of rank. So if you said Le Bernardin was number 1, it would get 5 points. Number 2 would be Danielle, 4 points. Number 3 would be Nobu, 3 points. And it's a cumulative thing, and that's one way of looking at the restaurants. Another way of looking at the restaurants is what is the best food. And there you put in a 3 and I put in a 2 and we get 2.5, and it ends up being 25 because we moved the decimal point. At that point, if 25 is the highest, it's number 1. But you may get a very different list of restaurants based on that.
And then under each restaurant, you have some quoted comments or purported quoted comments from surveyors.
What do you mean purported?
Well, let's get to that. Here's an example. Sammy's Romanian on the Lower East Side comes right out of this book.
All right.
You say it has enough schmaltz to induce a coronary.
That's true.
That's true. Primavera, we just talked about it. It says food is prepared with amore. Old Homestead in the meat-packing district, an unpretentious reminder that the meat-packing district used to pack meat. Balthazar, it's hard to beat for stargazing grazing.
God, you actually read this
I read this very closely. And the Ethiopian restaurant in the East 80s, you say, is cheaper than a safari. Now, did the surveyors really make up those quotes, or was it done by your editors at 4 Columbus Circle?
If it's in quotes, it comes from the surveyors. You remember, you had 32,000 people doing this, and frankly, there are a lot of things that are said repetitively. Most restaurant reviews, and I used to edit these things before, I don't anymore, but...
Well, do you have other people who do?
Oh, yeah, we have a big team of people.
Yeah.
But when you have 32,000 people who are eating out all the time, and they comment about a restaurant, how many different ways are you going to describe a Primavera? It's a lovely... restaurant on the Upper East Side, which is Nicola Civetta, who is a wonderful, wonderful host, also a great chef, although he doesn't cook as much. You're going to say wood paneled, it is a place that does have a lot of amore, and that's his shtick, is amore. And somebody is going to say
the Italian equivalent of shtick.
Yeah, but that's what he is. He's a loving, wonderful, warm person. And somebody picked that up and said it. And there are only so many ways you can describe a restaurant. And you see the same comments coming up again and again and again.
Well, you want to get away from that. I noticed that the comments are not the same year to year. They change for each restaurant.
But usually the thrust of the comments are the same if the restaurant is the same. If the restaurant...
Schmaltz is schmaltz.
Schmaltz is schmaltz. And we may change... Sammy's Romanian year in, year out, but I mean, Sammy's Romanian will have, like a wild bar mitzvah party, or you can drink yourself into the floor.
Owned by a cardiologist.
Yes, he's owned by a cardiologist who hands you his card on the way out. These are things that are going to be said all the time, and it's going to be said year in, year out. The thing that's exciting about New York is that because of its diversity and because of how many restaurants come and go, there's plenty of new stuff every year. We wouldn't have to do a book if it weren't for the fact that there are this year 222 new restaurants with 20,000 seats.
Well, the number one newcomer was a restaurant in your neighborhood, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You've been there?
Telepan, I've been there 4 or 5 times.
But you don't vote, do you?
Never vote. Haven't voted in 27 years.
And Nina doesn't vote.
She doesn't vote. It's stupid. Why would, first of all, it would be contrary to the whole idea for us to vote. Second of all, would be outvoted by 32,000 to 1. But no, seriously, it's contrary to the entire concept. What we are trying to do is hear from the customers, and we're basically holding the ballot box. We don't want to be voting because I think it creates questions about the integrity of the whole system. We've never voted. We never will vote. What we're interested in is knowing what you and your viewers think. I really invite your viewers, actually, to participate in the survey. All they need to do is go to Zagat.com.
Well, Tim, let me read to you, a la Tim Russert, and put on the screen, what a former Zagat editor said about the quotes in the survey. He said, quote, "A number of smart, talented people spend virtually all day, every day, stringing together those supposedly pithy quotes. And as they pass before you, you have to spray on some alliteration or insert a pun. It's what passes at Zagat for wit." Do you take issue with that statement?
First of all, I don't know who said it, and second of all, it's dead wrong.
Dead wrong in what respect? Because
it's just totally wrong.
So,
we get the comments purely from the public, and we have editors of whom he was one, I believe. I don't even remember him, but I think he worked for us. But the editors look at all the comments and pull together a review which is designed, they have instructions on how to do it, to show the food, the decor, the service, and the cost, and to do it within the guidelines of the numbers. If something is a 25 for food, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks, that defines the restaurant as having excellent food. If it's a 6 for decor, you can't say it's gorgeous. All you can do is say it's not, it's a funny dive or it's a cute dive. You can say something like that, but the numbers.
Or the decor is out of a French thrift shop.
Yeah, but you can, but you can say that it may have appeal, but the job of the editor is to pull together what the surveyors, i.e., what you and what the customers say. I'm sort of amazed by that comment.
Well, he published it on his blog.
Anybody can say anything they want on the blogs these days. They don't have to be right.
No, that's what the First Amendment is all about.
Nah, but it's right. I guess it is. I guess it is.
Now, we talked at the beginning of the show about your website.
The thing is, we have to be right.
Oh, yes.
Because we have 27 years of integrity and reliability on the line. Anyone can look up any restaurant in our guides, and every one of your viewers lives near or works near a particular restaurant or restaurants. They know those restaurants better than I do, you do, or anybody, any reviewer ever will, critic will ever. What they ought to do is look up in our guides what the restaurants they know best and see if they're not fair and accurate. We've passed that test again and again, and I open us up to that test every single day because that's the right test. We have got to be fair and accurate. If we're not, we're no good, and you should throw the book out.
Well, it's been 27 years, and you're still going.
I would like to think that we have passed that test again and again and again.
All right. Now, you have a website. You started it some time ago. You've improved it and updated it. It's www.zagat.com.
You're the only person in the last 6 months who's pronounced my name correctly.
Well, I've known you for a long time. Yeah. And we can put up on the screen your website so that everybody can see what the homepage looks like. But there's a lot of information available on your website that's free, like Forbes.com. I can get the whole magazine free.
That's right.
And there's some that I have to subscribe for.
That's right.
Such as the Wall Street Journal, where I have to subscribe for any information online. Can you tell us what I get for free at Zagat.com and what I don't, what I have to pay for?
The only thing you have to pay for is the reviews and ratings of about 25,000 restaurants in 75 or 80 cities, and and updates on whenever, if something happens of importance at a restaurant, the restaurant loses its chef, that will be reflected on the paid part of the site. Everything else, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, menus, photographs, information which is regularly stories about the restaurant industry, all of that is free, and huge numbers of people are using the free part of the site on a regular basis. It's very handy and useful. And the people who are really interested in digging into the ratings and reviews subscribe. And this has been, as I told you, one of the few profitable subscription sites extant in this country over the years.
But I can't get the ratings free online, can I?
No. You can get the ratings free. Yes, you can, but you have to subscribe.
So it's not free.
That's right.
Okay. Then also, you've partnered on the web with various other people. For example, there's the Corcoran Group, and we can put their website up. And the Corcoran Group is a real estate brokerage. And if I want to rent an apartment in a given neighborhood, I find on their website a reference to Zagat. And it tells me what are the restaurants and what is the nightlife in the area where I'm interested in renting an apartment. This is something new, isn't it?
It's new, and I think it's a great service because you can just create your own, you can see what the neighborhood is, and you get a sense of when you're not just buying into a building when you move, you're also buying into all the facilities around the building. We also include stores. So you're able to look at where you're going to live, not just the building, but also the neighborhood you're going to live in.
Now, you're facing more competition as well because of the net, from food bloggers, with the dozens of them that talk about food. There's New York Magazine, Gayo, Village Voice. Is competition affecting your business at all?
I hope it is, and I hope it is because I think competition makes you think and makes you do a better job.
Good. Well, I think it's time for our question. I have a question for you, which was the one I asked at the beginning. I think you answered it, but I ask you again, will Zagat dine out on the net or vice versa?
Yes. We have been, and it goes back to late 1980s, we've been on the net and have been consistently doing it and happily doing it.
Tim Zagat, marketer extraordinaire and bon vivant par excellence, thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming by. Tune in next week for more on the digital age. For the digital age, I am Jim Zirin. Good night and all the best.